It was a day like any other, or so I thought. A day I had no reason to believe would set in motion one of the most painful and life-altering experiences of my life. A day that began with the usual routine, but would soon unravel everything I thought I knew about my wife, our marriage, and the woman I had chosen to share my life with. This is the story of how I found out my wife was cheating on me, how I used technology to catch her red-handed, and the fallout that followed, how it destroyed her job, reputation, and ultimately, our marriage. It's not an easy story to tell, but it's one I feel compelled to share. My wife, Emma, and I had been married for nearly 7 years. We had met in college, quickly became inseparable, and built a life together. We shared everything: our hopes, our dreams, our fears, and even our darkest moments. Our relationship had always been a source of pride for me, and I was confident that I had found the woman with whom I would spend the rest of my life. We had a comfortable life. I worked as a software engineer, and Emma was an up-and-coming marketing executive at a prestigious firm. We lived in a nice house, had a circle of friends, and even took vacations together. From the outside, everything looked perfect. But, as anyone who's ever been through infidelity will tell you, things aren't always as they seem. Over the course of the past few months, I had begun to notice small, seemingly insignificant changes in Emma's behavior. She had become more distant, more distracted. The late nights at work had become more frequent. When we did spend time together, she seemed distant, as though her mind was elsewhere. She would avoid eye contact, and I started to sense that something was off. At first, I dismissed these feelings. I told myself I was being paranoid, that maybe I was just overthinking things. After all, we were both busy with our careers, and stress had a way of taking a toll on relationships. But deep down, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something wasn't right. One evening, while we were watching TV in the living room, I noticed Emma's phone buzzing on the coffee table. Normally, I would have never thought twice about her phone. We had a healthy level of trust, and we were both open about our social lives. But that night, I couldn't help but glance at the screen. The name that flashed across her phone screen was unfamiliar. It was a man's name. And the text message he had sent was brief, but its content sent a chill down my spine. I can't wait to see you tonight. I miss you. I froze. My heart skipped a beat. I felt a cold sweat form on the back of my neck. Who was this person? Why was Emma exchanging such intimate messages with someone else? I looked up at her, but she was engrossed in the TV show, completely unaware of my internal panic. I picked up her phone and, without thinking, opened the message thread. What I saw confirmed my worst fears. There were dozens of messages between Emma and this man, messages that were filled with flirtation, longing, and even talk of future meetings. I felt sick to my stomach. My mind raced with questions. But one stood out above all the others. Had my wife been cheating on me? Before I could process everything, Emma walked into the room and saw me holding her phone. Her face drained of color. She immediately knew what I had seen. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Emma hesitated, her eyes darting nervously. "It's not what you think," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. The evidence was right in front of me. "Who is this guy?" I demanded, my voice cracking with emotion. Her lips trembled, and for a moment, she didn't say anything. Finally, she spoke, but the words she uttered only deepened my hurt. It's just someone I've been talking to. It's nothing serious. I'm sorry." But that was a lie. I could tell. And deep down, I knew the truth. As I stood there, processing the shock of discovering my wife's betrayal, a part of me wanted to act impulsively, to confront her and end everything right there. But another part of me wanted answers. I needed to know the full extent of her affair. How long had it been going on? How deep did it run? What had she been hiding from me? That's when I realized I had a powerful tool at my disposal: our home's technology. We had recently set up a smart home system, complete with Chromecast, security cameras, and smart devices connected to the internet. We had always used Chromecast to stream movies and shows to our TV. It was simple, efficient, and we had enjoyed it for years. But now, it would become the key to uncovering the truth. I immediately opened the Chromecast app on my phone and checked the recent streaming history. I was hoping to see anything that would provide more context. And there it was. Just days before, there was an entry in the app showing a stream of a video from her phone to our TV at a time when she had told me she was working late. I clicked on the entry, and the video began to play. What I saw sent my heart crashing into my stomach. It was Emma, alone in our living room, sitting on the couch. But she wasn't alone in the way I had always imagined. A man was on the other end of a video call, and they were laughing, flirting, and talking in ways that only people who had an intimate connection could. It wasn't just a one-time thing. I could see that this had been going on for a while. In that moment, everything I had suspected was confirmed. My wife had been carrying on an affair right under my nose. I knew what I had to do next. I couldn't let Emma's actions go unchallenged. I couldn't allow her to continue living this lie while I was left to pick up the pieces. So, I decided to take legal action. With the evidence in hand, her phone messages, the Chromecast video footage, and more, I hired a lawyer and filed for divorce. But I didn't stop there. I wasn't just seeking a divorce, I was going to make sure Emma faced the consequences of her betrayal. I subpoenaed the footage from the smart home system and the phone records as part of the divorce proceedings. When we went to court, I made sure the judge and the jury saw everything, every message, every video, every piece of evidence that painted a picture of the woman I thought I knew. Emma tried to defend herself, claiming that the affair had been a mistake and that she was sorry. She even tried to argue that our marriage was in trouble, but none of that mattered. The truth was out, and it was undeniable. The affair was real, and it had been going on for months. As the case unfolded, it became clear that Emma's actions had more severe consequences than just the dissolution of our marriage. The affair, coupled with the public exposure of her betrayal, destroyed her career. The marketing firm she worked for had a strict no-tolerance policy for employees involved in such scandals, and within days of the court case, Emma was fired. Her reputation, once pristine and respected in her industry, was now in tatters. The whispers followed her everywhere she went. Her friends and colleagues distanced themselves. And the social media backlash was unforgiving. What had once been a promising career was now in ruins, and Emma was left to pick up the pieces of her shattered life. In the weeks and months that followed, I did my best to move on. The pain was overwhelming, but I had to focus on my own healing. I spent time with friends and family, sought therapy, and tried to rebuild my life. The scars of the betrayal remained, but with time, they started to fade. As for Emma, I can't say I know what happened to her after everything fell apart. She moved away to start over, far from the city where she once had everything. I hope she found peace, but I also know that her actions were her own, and she had to live with the consequences. I've learned many lessons from that experience, the most important of which is that trust is fragile. It can be shattered in an instant, and once broken, it's nearly impossible to rebuild. But I've also learned that we are all capable of moving on. Even after the most painful betrayals. Life goes on, and while it may never be the same, it can still be fulfilling. As for the technology that exposed Emma's infidelity, I'm still conflicted. It was the key to uncovering the truth, but it also contributed to the destruction of her life. It's a reminder that technology, for all its convenience, can also be a double-edged sword. It can help us solve problems, but it can also expose our darkest secrets. Ultimately, I caught my wife cheating through Chromecast, exposed her in court, and watched as her life fell apart. But the true cost of her actions wasn't just the loss of our marriage, it was the loss of everything she had worked so hard to build.